Have you heard the phrase, control the controllables? It means focus on things that you can truly control. Currently, there are a lot of YouTube videos created by people focusing on things we cannot control, like housing prices, mortgage rates, housing market craziness. None of us truly know what the housing market's going to do. Other agents, they're going to make videos about a crash, and they're going to talk about why you should not buy a home because of what's going to happen in the future. They're fear mongering. They're trying to scare you. They're trying to get clickbaits. All right, but here's the kicker of it all. All of that fear mongering is absolute garbage. It ultimately doesn't benefit you in any way at all. Now, that's why I want to take the time right now, not to convince you to buy a home, but talk about the times when you should contemplate buying versus when you should wait/lease. Now, it's not always a great time to buy a home, and we'll get to when you should wait. But what you should do is give all your time, effort, and energy into watching others who fearmonger about all this current craziness. They don't know any more than you or I do about what's going to happen in the market. Am I right? I get asked this regularly. Zora, tell me why I should buy a home. Home prices are still very high. Interest rates are the highest in over a decade. This makes buying a home very unaffordable. It's at a near all-time low. So why should I buy a home? That is a great question I get asked all the time. There are some things that we're going to talk about here in a moment. What is the number one reason to buy a home? So you can fix and stabilize your monthly housing costs with a mortgage that is in a locked-in rate, and you get to avoid those annual leasing rent increases every single time you renew that lease. The earlier you stabilize your housing costs, the more controllable your overall budget will become. In other words, more predictable. Also, over time at your job, you should continue to make more money as you climb the corporate ladder, or whatever ladder it is that you're trying to climb. With that, you'll expect your income to increase, so the sooner you fix that housing cost relative to your current budget, the lower your housing costs will be over time. While that is happening, you may have the likelihood to take advantage of lower rates in the future with a refi. Now, meaning your housing costs may go down even more, while at the same time, you are paying down on your principal balance on that mortgage while gaining equity during that time. Hint, hint, hint. Include a little bit more to your mortgage every month to pay down on the principal. Real estate appreciates over a period of time, but it may not every year. Home prices don't automatically gain value every single year. There is the chance that you start paying down the principal balance and the value of your home actually comes down. Therefore, you don't have as much equity in your property. But this is what I do understand. Real estate continues to gain value over time, but real estate investment is a long-term investment. Stick with it. Don't bail on it after a few years if you don't see the equity gain that you're expecting. Well, the one thing you can control in today's video is hitting the thumbs up if you find any value in my video. And another thing you can control is hitting that subscribe button. That is if you want to stay updated on information like this. But in all honesty, what I'm talking about is keeping your focus on things that you can control. I'm talking about things like your budget, your down payment, your credit score. Your credit score impacts your monthly payment more than anything else, and it impacts your monthly mortgage payment when it comes to buying a home. When you go buy a car, get a credit card, or take out some other type of debt, your credit score has the biggest impact on the terms that you're getting. So if you're currently in a position where housing prices are a little too expensive and you can't really afford the type of home that you want to buy, use this time to focus on your credit, up your score. Great question. I already know what you're going to ask because I get asked this quite often. How can I improve my credit score? How can I raise my credit to the top tier so when I find that perfect home, it comes on the market, I'm in the best position to get the best terms available? How? That could mean taking some of the money that you might use towards a down payment. Instead of putting 20% on a home, you put 10% down. Use that additional 10% you were going to use for the home to pay off debt that could potentially help raise your credit score. It not only improves the terms of your loan, it also allows you to purchase more homes, potentially. If that's what you're thinking about doing, don't just go out there willy-nilly and do that on your own. Make sure you talk and get help from a reputable and trusted lender, someone knowledgeable and who understands the finances of the whole thing and who can help walk you through and make sense of the entire process. And you don't just want to start paying off debt because sometimes, not all the time, but paying off debt can lower your credit score in some ways. If you have to be strategic about it, talk with a credit repair expert. Another thing you can control outside of your credit score and your down payment is your budget. And you're probably watching this thinking, Zorn, why do I need a budget? I have a budget. Well, do you? Do you have a budget that's actually written down when it comes to buying a home? Do you know how much you can afford, based on all of your monthly expenses? I'm talking about your whole budget. How much do you spend on your gas, your groceries, your monthly subscriptions to Amazon, your gym membership, your food bill, whatever it is, entertainment, travel, kids, luxuries, the last weekend's trip to Port Aransas, your date nights, everyday living expenses. Most home buyers don't have a budget that includes all of it. Instead what they do is they decide what they want to go buy a house, then they go talk to a lender. Well, a lender, what they do is they analyze everything and they say, hey, this is how much you can afford based off your debt to income ratio, based off the calculations that I'm doing. And this is what I typically see. The home buyer says,
hey, I'm qualified for $500,000. We can go buy a $500,000 home.
Now, without actually looking at the whole budget to determine whether or not they can afford that $500,000 home. Because one thing to understand is when a lender is analyzing your DTI, your debt to income ratio, they're only taking into account the things that show up on your credit report. The things like your credit card, your car payments, student loans, the installments, and revolving debt. These are the only things that they're really looking at. They don't factor any of the stuff in, and it's important as a home buyer that you know your budget before having that conversation. So that way you know exactly where you stand. So that way you're not putting yourself in a bad position by buying a home. As I mentioned, there are times where you definitely should not buy a home. That, and the number one time, especially in today's market, is that if you only have a short-term plan, if you're not planning on being in that home for more than a few years, then you probably shouldn't be buying a home in today's market unless you plan on keeping it as a rental. The time is right to buy if you plan on being in the home for 5+ years or longer term, and the financial numbers do make sense for you. Now, the main reason I believe that is because home prices have appreciated so much in such a short period of time that there's a good chance at some point in the future we do see the home prices flatten out a little bit. Now, there's a chance that we even see them coming down. And if you're buying a home with a short-term plan and you're putting little to no money down, well, if the price stays flat or it drops, chances are you could potentially end up upside down when it comes to time to sell your home. So make sure you have that long-term planning, or you have plans to keep that property. You want to make sure that you have job security, that you're at a place in your career when you're not only going to be employed or employable, but you're going to continue to make money. Is your job safe from layoffs? Are you able to find work with your experience and skills rather quickly, if a layoff does occur? Relationship is another security, is what you want to have. Meaning, if you are living together with a significant other, that is a boyfriend, girlfriend, but if you're not really sure if it's going to work out long term, well, you probably shouldn't go out and buy a home together. Because let me tell you, boy, buying a home together, if a relationship is not stable, and putting the title on both names is not likely to make a relationship any better. As a matter of fact, it's probably going to make it worse. Let's go check on the Vegas odds. Now, staying on familiar topic is financial security. You want to make sure you do have financial stability, not only the money for a down payment for the closing costs, but that you have money set aside in case something does happen with that property where you need to make repairs. Also, if something does happen with your career, you have some additional money to keep making that mortgage payment, and that's why it's super important that you're comfortable with that payment. I realize now, with home prices being high, interest rates being higher than they have ever been over the past decade, that payment isn't really attractive. You may not like the payment, but you have to be comfortable with the payment, just in case the interest rates don't come down as quickly as you thought. And that's another thing I want to point out. Mortgage rates. I hear a lot of people over the last couple of years saying, you marry the property, you date the rate. With the idea of interest rates, we're going to come down automatically. I was one of those people, probably like many of you, believing that mortgage rates are going to come down quicker than they have, but they have not. They're up there, they're high, going over 7% for conventional. So if you're buying a home right now with the expectation that interest rates are going to come down and your payment is going to be more affordable, then you are speculating that you can afford it. Word of caution, you should consider not buying a property now if you can only afford it in the future when something happens that is in speculation, uncertain, no guarantee. You're putting yourself at risk. Now, that's not to say the mortgage rates can't come down during that period, but as I stated earlier in the video, focus on things you can control. You can control rates, you can control your budget, you can control what you're comfortable with, so that you're not setting yourself up for failure in the future If you're one of those people waiting because you have some large sum of money coming or your financial position is going to change in the future, that's going to make it more advantageous for you to buy than if you're waiting for more favorable conditions or a lower mortgage rate or just haven't found the right home. That's completely okay. There's absolutely nothing wrong with waiting. In fact, Dave Ramsey says, renting is buying you patience until you're ready to buy a home, but there is one thing to understand. Consequences. Waiting can sometimes have consequences, which means housing costs could continue going up, making it more and more expensive to buy a home. And on top of that, mortgage rates or home prices may not decrease. In fact, they both can go up. I don't have a crystal ball to know or have the background to know what's going to happen, but anything is possible. Which means that if this does happen, the cost to buy a home is going to be more expensive if you wait than it is right now versus buying a home now if interest rates were coming down. You'll be in a better position to take advantage of buying now when you have down payment for your home, your qualifications to buy a home that make you eligible, than if you wait hoping the home and interest drops, but instead goes up. Well, guess what? You're in the best position possible because if your rates come down, you'll still be able to take advantage of that in the future, assuming you still meet the guidelines at that time. So instead of sitting here and watching YouTube and all these fear-mongering videos and focusing on the things that you can't control, rather focus on the things that we talked about in today's video and ultimately buying when it's the right time in your life. My name is Rowan Spank. I hope you got something beneficial out of this video. And if you have gotten something of value, go down to subscribe, click it, leave a comment or a like. Thank you. My name is Rowan Spank with EXP, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a great day.